All right, morning guys, Andy Adding here again. Just want to talk to you guys about session 2 of the QBBA program. Actually, before we get to session 2, just want to comment on the first session. All my feedback thus far has been pretty positive, so thanks to everyone who was at the first session. Things seems like they're rolling along pretty good. One thing that we just need to stress is consistency across regions, so I'm going to harp a little bit on the delivery of the material that you guys present, and I know everyone has their own experiences and everyone has their own ideas about various things, but there are certain elements within the program that have to be consistent across regions where, as I said previously, it's a paid product now, so we need to make sure that the product that they get, irrespective of which region that they come to, is basically the same. And that's for both the athlete development program and the coaching development program. So we really need to make sure that what we're delivering is consistent. So that's where we need to refer to the session references prior to delivering the sessions and make sure that we understand that material before we present it. But basically all went well, and I'm pretty happy with the way things are going so far. As you'll see on your session plan for session 2, that you should have in conjunction with this email, we've got a slightly different warm-up routine, routine B, which includes some similar components to session 1, but also some different stuff as well. There's a little bit of stuff that's still from the NCAS Level 4 accreditation manual, but there's also some other stuff from the Queensland Rams old coaching manual. This is a resource that we've had, it's a few years old now, but there's some pretty good stuff in there. Unfortunately, the exercises that are in there aren't linked with a video file, so there may still be some of those exercises in there that you guys may not know, so you may have to refer to guys who were involved in the program last year. Most of this stuff we used in last year's program, so make sure that somebody who was involved in the program last year can go through those exercises with whoever's running the warm-up. They're pretty straightforward, but just make sure that they're across those. If for whatever reason you haven't been able to open the document that I sent in relation to the Queensland Rams coaching manual, make sure you let me know. It's a pretty large file. I may be able to either break it up and send it to you or send you separate sections that are relevant. So that's the warm-up basically. The base running, again, it's pretty simple stuff, just leads and returns at first base. You can, like I said last week, make sure you use the scholarship group athletes to lead a bit of that. So worst case scenario, even if a coach presents it, make sure you're asking lots of questions to try and draw some knowledge out of the group so that they're not just standing there completely unengaged. Make sure they're involved. Once we get to the throwing program this week, again, we've got 2 separate throwing programs. The junior guys are going to be doing a count throwing program this week, so compared to the timed throwing program they did last week, they just throw a set number of throws at each distance and then move their way back. That set number of throws, however, has to be a successful throw in succession, so i.e. 5 successful throws at each distance where you hit your partner on the chest before you move back to the next distance. So hopefully that's pretty straightforward, but again, we just want to show also for coaches and athletes in this sense to try and show them some of the different types of throwing programs that we use. And then again, the senior guys are doing the Jaeger throwing program again, which there's been plenty of information circulated about that one, so they're just going to read their arms and continue to stretch back at their own pace, but try and encourage them this week to stretch a bit further certainly than they did last week, because next week when we do testing they will be able to, they need to be able to sort of get it going a bit, so they need to be at full strength at that stage. So encourage them to stretch back a bit closer to maximum distance. We're still just stretching out at this stage, so making sure we've got some arc on the ball, not necessarily worrying about throwing it hard on the way back in yet, but we'll get to that over the next couple of weeks. And then obviously, yeah, we finish with our 20 throws drill and our touch and feel for a couple of minutes for all players. In our individual defense, we've got a catching session, ground balls and fly balls again. So the catchers will do some basic blocking stuff, so make sure you've got someone who can take care of that. If you don't have anyone on your staff specifically that's probably appropriate to do that, you need to let me know. We need to try and find somebody. Also, if you don't have many catches in your group, on a slightly different note, we need to think about this. I noticed on the north side on the weekend, there wasn't many catches in that group. So once we do get to throwing bullpens, we're going to need to identify some guys that could potentially catch bullpens. So we need to either try and round up some other catchers to get involved in the program, or work out which guys could potentially have catching as their second position, in which case we can identify some of those guys and we might need to organise some gear. So in that sessions, yeah, the infielders will do backhands this time. Outfielders, I think, are working on balls back over their head, still maintaining their athleticism, and the catchers are doing their blocking drills. With regards to the hitting session, we talked about last week those stage one sort of hitting drills where we're just from the middle of the strike zone trying to hit a line drive towards centre field, line drive with backspin. The progression this week is we're going to introduce doing the same thing, but doing from the top of the strike zone and the bottom of the strike zone. So after we've had a round each, then you can use the tees and extend them all the way to the top of the zone and all the way to the bottom of the zone. If the tees don't work and don't go up and down, empty the bucket out. So put the balls on the ground and then turn the bucket over and sit the tee on the bucket to get obviously the top of the strike zone. Some of those tees may not necessarily go up and down. But again, have them hit in rounds of 10 and try and encourage them to keep track of how many successful outcomes they have in that round of 10. And then what we're going to do is we're going to assess them basically from the middle of the zone as we get through the session. As they've had a few swings and practiced a bit, we'll actually assess them and we'll record a result, how many out of 10 they get on, and we'll record that on your post-session feedback form. I'll provide these for the regional coordinators. Record that result for each kid on that. Those who successfully complete that then can progress to the stage 2, which again means basically assessing how many times out of 10 you can hit a line drive to centre field from the pitch, 5 at the top of the strike zone and 5 at the very bottom of the strike zone. All right, so we're just slowly starting to expand their contact zone and their hittable area. And then the conditioning is the ABF Stage 1 conditioning drills, which are pretty simple. There's also basically hyperlinks to video files of those exercises. Don't forget to remind the guys at the end of the session about their homework. Again, their homework for this week is to make sure that they play catch at least twice this week, and remind them that and again, practice the tee drill, as much tee drill as they can, including the stage 2 drills, which involve hitting balls from the top and bottom of the strike zone. And then make sure that you remind them that the following week, our third session will be at All Stars. All QBA athletes will be there together for our testing day. So make sure that everybody's had enough throwing. Make sure that they're practicing and they're doing some throwing during the week, so that their arms are ready to go. We'll assess that. If there are guys that still aren't that stage, then maybe they don't just do the throwing assessment on that day and they can do all else. But we'll talk more about the testing session next week. But in the meantime, have a good session. If you've got any questions, give me a buzz, send me an email. Otherwise, we will see you on the weekend. Thanks, guys.